Hello, everybody, and welcome to another conversation in our series on seeking harmony. This is part 5, and we are looking at the dynamics of power. And I feel like it's a fitting continuation of our conversation from last week in terms of trying to harmonize relationships. And so we're looking at power at an individual and collective level, and also the dynamics in which that power plays out, but also looking at a further dynamic of power, which is the abuse or misuse of that power, and how that can stem into potential responses or lead into potential responses to that abuse of power. So we are going to just open up the conversation and allow it to flow freely. We'd like to invite everybody that's following us, that has joined us, to please feel free to share your thoughts, insights, experiences of how power has played out in your life, and even just how you have started to just own your own personal power and embed that in your life and embody that. So I'm going to open it up to the team. I'd like us to just introduce ourselves again, and then we'll continue from there. So I am Granville Campbell.
I am Sandra Batista. I'm sorry.
I'm Deji.
I am Noreen.
So I think one of the things that we've delved into around power was in our Why Black Lives Matter conversation, and the ownership, or sometimes even the illusion of a lack of personal power. So it's a topic that has come up in various forms. We've looked at the divine masculine owning his personal power. We've looked at the divine feminine owning her power. We've looked at the power narrative from a racial point of view. And so now we're going to look at the power dynamic at a personal and collective point of view within the political landscape and within the global events that are playing out around us at the moment. So one of my feelings around power is that it's something that we don't realize intrinsically that exists until we actually start to truly become aware of it, and how we start to truly heal that we are actually not powerless. And I feel like it's something that has grounded in as well in terms of some of Jeff and Shaleia's teachings, in that being in power or empowered is a natural state. So as we heal into even just accepting that we are powerful individuals, it changes how we show up in life, how we interact with people, how we allow people to interact with us. And I feel like by extrapolation at a global level, a lot of the power play is very reflective of personal power dynamics playing out on a global scale. So yeah, by way of introduction, though, that's kind of my piece to share in terms of what that landscape of power is, and how we can start to just ground into it, and how we can start to understand the dynamics of power, and also to understand that there does come a point at which personal power has to be very actively exercised in relation to other people and in relation to events and situations that we may find ourselves in. So yeah, big concepts to explore, but not inexplicable. And so I don't want us to go to the global consciousness of what power is before we just ground again that energy of the personal power dynamic. So yeah, in saying that, I'd like to open it up to the team and maybe start off with a question of maybe looking at a contrast of where you in your life have felt really powerful versus not powerful, and what that has meant in your life. So yes, just think about it in terms of the contrast or the two sides of the coin, where you felt powerful, where you felt powerless, and what emotions that brought up for you.
So, well, a situation where I felt powerless was maybe as a child. There's no like precise memory coming to mind, but just like sometimes the feeling of being dismissed as a child. And the child have feelings, children have feelings too. So I knew sometimes it wasn't right to not include me in some decisions and conversations. And oftentimes the adults have this saying, oh, this is a conversation for adults, you should go to your room or play, things like that. Not saying that I wanted to talk about politics with my parents, even though I wanted to a little bit. It's just that by dismissing a child instead of asking them about their feelings and their opinions on some things, we tend to educate them to give up their power. And they're saying like, oh, they don't want my opinion on this, so I have no power here. So I guess this is a situation where it would need a little bit more communication or a little bit more listening to all parties, knowing that children are equals in God, and that we are all children of God. And so there's a lesson in every situation. And situation where I felt powerful, I guess with this work, I learned and practiced that being powerful was being at peace. And I'm in a country where people love to debate, have debates, and they love to be right about things. And so sometimes a conversation with someone can turn into kind of a pride parade, like who is the most powerful, who is who has the most knowledge, who is right, basically. And I found that I derived like no pleasure from entering that game, and so more and more I found myself in situations where just being at peace, what I received was back was a true testament to my power, and it feels pretty good and really grounding. And it may seem contradictory, but it feels really humbling to know that I have so much power, and I think that's what true power is. So yeah, what are you guys' experiences on power, with power?
You kind of said what I felt I was going to say, but I was gonna wait. And I didn't really think about the child part until you like brought it out. So that really that hit me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. But do you have like, was there a precise memory for you about like,
It's the same. It's the same thing with
yeah,
you. There's no precise moment. It's just the experience of being a child with individuals who um I guess the way to say it is of individuals who try to, I guess, I can't get the words out. I can't get the words out. Individuals who, I guess, try not to like add value to like who you are and like your feelings. And it's always like you said, oh, like go to your room, stay in a child's place, things like that. Yeah, like what you said, Marion.
yeah, not feeling valued. It's interesting that you say it
Yeah,
that way, but I guess, yeah, I guess it can hurt to not feel valued as an intelligent being,
yeah,
because that's what we are, even though we haven't learned all the lessons in life.
yeah. And I didn't even think about it until you said it, because the power part was so apparent because, like you said, again, with fighting this work, it's just like, yeah, I'm a powerful being. We're a child of God. That's it. And then you said the child part, I'm like, okay, now you're bringing the memories back.
Yeah, interesting to see the dynamics of power even in like parent relationship situation.
Yeah.
I agree.
My story is I have had low self-esteem and I've wanted people to love me and like me. And so what happened was I was giving my energy or my power away. And that caused me to not like me because I was giving my energy and power away. I wasn't loving me. And I know I'm a smart person and I'm a lovable person. So when I found this work, I'm able to know I have power and that I can love me and that I have a choice. I can make the choice to have boundaries and love me and hold on to my power for me.
Also, I think you guys have touched on something quite important in that energy of being raised and the energy of almost, and it's something that I heard growing up, was that energy of children should be seen but not heard. And so I feel like that fuels what has turned into playing small and not completely being comfortable to even be inside your own powerful self. And so the self becomes diminished. And it's something that Deb shared in the book that she's reading at the moment, just in that energy of self-awareness and how that inner child often holds the key to your healing. And I feel like, just going further on this topic of playing small or becoming small in relation to having grown up in a certain dynamic, I feel like it plays out a lot across our grown-up lives. And I experienced it in my life in terms of a lack of self-confidence. So even though I knew my topic, even though I was in the position to use my positional power, not only my personal power, I often ended up second guessing myself very much in my earlier career. And one of the things that when I look back, also made it uncomfortable to just even talk in front of people. And so, like, you know, like I look at my journey, and it was uncomfortable for me to talk in front of people, but I was a Sunday school teacher from the age of 12 to 16. And then, you know, I was class representative in my university 4 years, and I've had to do conversations with employees across the business and things like that. And I just, you know, like, it's just testament to, even though we believe, or we are led to believe through our circumstances, that we may not be capable, our paths are always steered in the direction where God says, well, actually, I didn't make you to sit in the corner. I didn't make you to hide your light under what we would have known as a bucket or a bushel. I didn't make you to be fed in the dark and not be in the light. And so I feel like my journey, even though it took a lot of growth into those roles, was to actually step into that power and to walk that path of personal power, even though there was the illusion of underconfidence. And I feel like, you know, that's kind of some of the dynamics of what power is personally, is that we may have these delusions of ourselves not being capable, or ourselves needing more knowledge, needing support, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, God puts you in that situation where he's like, okay, my child, this is actually who you are. And so now you need to be who you are. And so you are driven into your authentic self, almost by divine guidance. And if you had a choice, you may not have gone down that road. But like, God's like, okay, I gave you power. You're made in my image. Stop pissing about. This is your job. Do it, kind of thing. And so, yeah, you know, like, as you guys were talking, I was just like, yeah, you can kind of see the two extremes. One where you didn't realize that all those illusions were sitting there, and another where you realize how actually powerful you are. And it's almost like, yeah, it's natural, it's normal, there's nothing massive about it. But if you think about, if you almost look at your journey and plot it on a timeline, you probably realize just how much every experience has encouraged you, or sometimes even pushed you into accepting and owning your personal power. And even in those situations where you were backed into a corner, you were still pushed to own your personal power. And that's kind of some of the dynamics of how power plays out. Like, right, so it's coming at me. Like, what, am I going to shrink into the corner and hide in a bathroom, or am I going to face it head on? You know, and that's the kind of thing that we're starting to see more and more being highlighted in the world, with movements like Stop Bullying, Stand Up to Bullies, with movements like Love Yourself. Because loving yourself puts the power in your hands. You're not in the space of keeping yourself hungry for power and approval because you're waiting for somebody else to do it. And so, you know, it's like these nuances of lessons that kind of knit together very well if you pay attention to it. But you kind of do need to pay attention to it. And then once you pay attention, you start to see the patterns, you start to see the dynamics, you start to trust yourself, which is something that I feel has been part of my journey in understanding that I am actually a powerful being, and that I don't have to exercise power against anything. I need to just exercise power. I just need to be in my personal power. So yeah, I was like, you know, it's a big share, but like, what I really want to just check in with you guys, like, when you realized you actually had power, Was it this massive epiphany, or did it just kind of naturally settle into your energy field and into your soul and into your aura and into your being? Like, what was the experience there?
What you said, like all of it, what you said, like you took the words right out of my mouth. And it made me think of was it your first sermon back in 2020? It was about power. And you talked about your journey and how natural it was. And yeah, here we are, like 1.5 years later, exploring Baton, seeking harmony. And I wanted to say that it was kind of the same for me. Like I was shy. I was a shy kid, probably because like I heard these things from my parents, or because they were scared that I would live a life of hardship. So I needed to hide, almost like keep my opinions to myself about bodies. But there were always these situations where God was like, actually, this is your path. Like, actually, you need to speak up. Actually, you need to do these things. And when I got to adult life, and people were like, "Oh, but you seem so self-assured." Like, I don't know. I'm still feeling low self-esteem, but you know what? I realized that I don't have to feel ready or perfect to speak up. I just want to speak my truth, and that's how I learned to speak and have oral presence, and it was kind of natural because it was gradual. I didn't start by doing speeches in middle school. I just started because I instead of being the shy kid or being scared of telling something that isn't right or scientifically proven, I just raised my hand and spoke with people. I felt guided to interact more with people and like go speak with them. They're humans. Like there's nothing to be scared about, even though you don't know them, even though they're still strangers to you. And to an extent, I did that when only guided, and then it turned into a habit, a way of being, basically. And I felt that I had changed, but actually I was just grounding into that natural presence, my divine being, my divine guidance. That's what I understood in like the years I've been studying this work. But it was kind of natural and feels like, I don't know, being attentive to the signs to grow. I don't know how much it's related to the path that we have chosen to take, but it feels good to feel that everyone is always going to have a perfect lesson to be guided to back to their power, Yeah, so that was my experience. So I'd say not a single moment, but a timeline. Yeah, that's just Sandra. Did you have a timeline like that, or did you have a sudden epiphany one day?
I didn't have. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You can go if you want to.
I thought she said my name's Sandra, so that's why I responded. I didn't have a sudden epiphany. It was cumulative, built on experience, and experience, and that I would know, and I would get stronger, and I would know that I had a choice, and that I could be empowered, and I could feel good. And this community does make me feel strong and empowered and encourages me to be transparent and communicate and feel good, feel empowered. That's my experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it brought me back to it wasn't the first Black Lives Matter thing we did. It was the after church tea time we did back in 2020 for the thing when I first met you, Urine, and met Granville. And I recall myself like bawling during that entire after church tea time. And I recall I guess kind of like being lost in the process, if that makes sense, because that was 2 years ago. And when it was explained to me of, you know, claiming my power and valuing myself, it was like, oh, so that's what I was missing? That's what I wasn't doing? Like, oh, okay. So it was like a, just like a, oh, okay, that's it, never mind. Then, yeah, that's my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on something quite important as well in terms of when you realize that when that awareness hits you, it feels like the simplest thing actually. But prior to that kind of dawn of awareness, you're kind of wheel spinning about all sorts of random things and not realizing that that is actually the concept of leaking your energy or leaking your power. And so, you know, like I like how as we go deeper into the work, we just start to really understand how simple and easy that incorporation of the lesson is, and how that simple and easy that incorporation of the healing is. And then it's not, you know, I always have the sense of once I've done a piece of healing, I actually emotionally understand the meaning of the word as opposed to intellectually. It's a shift in understanding the power of the emotion behind that word versus just knowing the word and its intellectual meaning. Like I find that simple shift, or that shift in awareness starts to feel really simple, but it's kind of quite profound. So yeah, and I'm just like putting it out there and checking with you guys if that's been part of your experience as well.
It makes me think of, you know, it's funny that you introduced the topic with our conversation on why Black Lives Matter, because I was thinking about how we explored power through the lens of the presidential elections. And now that you've said all this, I realized that our individual healing was gradual, but the world's healing was gradual as well. Like we were exploring like how we have power in these elections and power to lead the country because we are electing a leader, to guide the consciousness of a nation. And now, so it was kind of it was very hands-on, like we did healing on this, but it was very hands-on, like register and vote. You have a choice, you have power. And now what we're exploring and what we're seeing in the world is like this lesson that actually you have power individual power to influence the collective power of your nation. And it's all the time. It's not just elections. The way you behave, your values, and your consciousness will have an impact. The love that you have for a nation will have an impact on this nation and on the world. It's kind of tremendous because like we are growing individually into our power and realize actually there was all that power there all along. We are just discovering it. Ukraine's President Zelensky and his acts of bravery are influencing the world to see that actually we have power. Like we're not helpless. We're not powerless. And I think it's just only, I think it's a natural step of ascension. It still bugs my mind. But I do think that it's God saying like, you have power and it's only the beginning. Like, just wait and see. It's amazing. Because when we started this discussion of seeking harmony, we were truly feeling how much power we had to keep our system in check and love it and make it grow towards something that is heavenly. So yeah, that's how it resonated with me. And it's kind of shifting between like individual to collective power, but yeah.
Yeah, I think what you shared is it's like the perfect segue into how that individual power does influence the collective power and how that dynamic shifts. And again, you know, it's as simple as the dynamic of our individual healing, that the shift in our lives starts on the inside. And so if we now equate that shift on the inside to the shift at an individual level, it kind of does have to spill out into a global effect, right? It has to spill out into a collective effect, the way our personal internal healing spills out into our outside reality. It kind of, it's, you know, like it's what you said, Yurine, it's that natural progression. It's that natural progression of, first I need to realize, hey, actually, I am an individual with power. I am a powerful individual. Then it's that realization of, I have the power to influence systems and processes. And as you realize that, as we realize it at an individual level, it really does become an invitation at a collective level for people to join us there. And I think that's the dynamic I'm starting to see. The more I sit in my peace, the more it's an invitation for people to meet me in peace. And the more I see contrast and I heal it, the more the contrast falls away, or the people that bring the contrast fall away. But all the time, it's literally a game of influence. And it's not because we're actively trying to play a game of influence, but because we're choosing to heal, we're choosing to influence. And, you know, something that's always struck me about the word manipulation is the fact that everybody has a very negative perception of the word manipulation. But the fact is, manipulation as a word is something we do as a natural cause of things. We manipulate our energy to produce something. That's not a negative thing. That's us using our power to shift our energy into a product or a relationship or a situation or a system or work. You know, and so I feel like there's a lot of dynamics just in language as well that shift as we get more and more clear about the fact that there could be a negative connotation, but there's also a positive connotation. And like, which one are you pursuing here? Because again, your choice is powerful. And your choice to undertake your healing is a powerful invitation for other people to join you in healing. Your choice to exercise your power in a healthy way is an invitation for other people to join you. But then also, your choice to exercise your power in a negative or abusive way means that people have the choice in which way they're going to respond to you, which is what we're seeing play out with what you mentioned about the president of the Ukraine. He's saying, I will not be bullied. My people will not be bullied. I will be on the front line with them. And what's happening? His people are joining him on the front line. And as they collectively use their power to stand up to the tyranny that's being displayed against them, the world, or quite the majority of the world, is standing up and saying, I'm going to support you. I'm going to say no to tyranny. I'm going to have the courage of my convictions and stand behind you. Because there's also, there's the difference between lip service and having the courage of your convictions to actually act. And I feel like, like this thing of power is such a fun new landscape, because we realize how much of our own power we sit with that we may in the past not have realized. So it's kind of awakening to the truth of what is power, and then starting to see the ripple effect of that awakening and see how reality is actually shifting to indicate that people are becoming aware of their power. They're becoming much more aware of their power, the ability to exercise their power in the right way for the situation.
I think we are very powerful, and we can, more powerful than we realize. We can pray and love and heal the situation here in the world and with Ukraine. Each individual, they have their energy field, and you can like visualize that you're a sun in, you're shining just like the sun. And then when you do that, also, it's like spreading love. And like you said, ripple effects, you're spreading love, and it ripples through the universe, it ripples through the planet, it ripples everywhere. But you got to be mindful of what you do, because you could do it the wrong way and send out hate instead of love. So this is very powerful, to be able to send love and prayers to this planet. We are more powerful than we realize.
I think you touched on something quite important, Sandra, in terms of kind of that energy of opposites, of what are you actually sending out. But I also feel like there's a component of action that, yes, you can send out love, you can vibrate at the correct level, but you also sometimes have to meet the collision. Not because you're looking for the collision, but to dissipate the energy of the collision. Because scientifically, we have been taught that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so, it's kind of like what Jeff was speaking to in the video that him and Shaleia shared. Like, you kind of need to actually stand up in those places where it is required of you to stand up. And I think it's something that we touched on a while ago in one of our conversations in terms of during the struggle for liberation, did violence serve a purpose? And the conclusion that we generally come to is that yes, it served a purpose under those circumstances because people then paid attention. And I feel like that's kind of the energy of actually meeting a bully where they live, meeting a tyrant where they live. Sometimes it's a kind of a dual process of people need to meet you where you live, but sometimes you actually need to meet them where they live and speak to them in a language that they understand. It's something that we touched on last week in our conversation. Like sometimes you gotta speak the language of the oppressor. Now, what language are they speaking to you? Well, it depends on the circumstances. And so in speaking their language as a metaphor, what is the situation actually calling for in order for you to embody your power? And for that person to understand that what they are doing is not acceptable to you.
I agree with you, Granville. You have to meet people where they're at, and you have to deal with the situation where you're at and what you have to do. What is in front of you and what do you got to do that's in front of you to handle it? I agree with you.
And so it makes me think of the people of Russia right now and, analyzing their history and their behavior. There's always been that kind of like shrink back on yourself and protect your family energy. And Jeff's call of people of certain nation to stand up and be ready to face consequences and be courageous, because you love a leader by facing the tyranny head on, if he's a tyrant. It makes me think that, yeah, what will actually turn the tide this time is people knowing, acknowledging that they have individual power. We don't want any more world wars. That's why this conflict is so important. I think that's why it has gotten so much media attention, because we don't want that. But in order to not have that, we have to have citizens that are ready to speak up and be courageous. And it was actually always there, but we have just arrived at that lesson. And now more than ever, because of the world we have built with peace organizations and technology and means of communication, it's funny because it's like technology, but it's called communication. We have more tools than ever to take that action that completes the power of our being and our energy vibration and prayers. So, yeah, again, like, what can we do for the people of Russia? Because I have compassion, and I studied them a lot in college, and now with a renewed conflict and Jeff's insights and advice, they do need help. They need love. So, yeah, what can we do for that? What can we do to support our brother in choosing love? Because I'm sure most of them are not evil, but the apathy is going to make fear win if they don't do something.
I think you spoke to something quite important in terms of that energy of apathy versus courage. And, you know, like at the core of it, I feel like there's the energy of fear. And we've read, you know, countless stories about the fear of persecution that's kind of been entrenched amongst the Russian people, and what that has done in terms of them swinging into the space of first protect my family. And I don't, you know, like naturally, I don't think that that's that kind of energy doesn't do anything, because you can't really step into the space of really fully embodying your energy and power when you're worried about your family and close to them. So, like, you know, there's the kind of that energy of compassion that you were speaking to, that we kind of need to understand the code, like even if we don't understand it, maybe try and extrapolate from how we would respond. You know, just extrapolate what might be going on in that space. And it might not necessarily completely be an energy of apathy, but it also could be fueled by a fear of persecution. But it's also, but you know, like it's a fine line of kind of being afraid of being persecuted in the short term, or being persecuted in the long term, because not acting now because you're protecting your family could very well mean that you end up living in a country that is the pariah of the world. And so you don't have the opportunities that you would have had, and you don't have the resources that you would have had. So it's kind of that energy of weighing up the short-term gain versus the long-term consequence. And then also, you know, it's something that Jeff touched on, that courage might even mean that you will die for your freedom. And when you're prepared to die for your freedom. And we've seen it countless times in fights for liberation and fights for people to just generally be empowered in nations and things like that, as opposed to their power being stripped away through very inhumane laws, through very inhumane activities. And if you look at liberation struggles, there have been consequences on both sides. And so the short-term consequence has led to long-term gains. So, you know, it's kind of playing the, like, you know, balancing the scales, like, you know, like what is the immediate gain versus the long-term gain, or the immediate challenge versus the long-term challenge. And am I prepared to forego the immediate gratification and gain for a longer-term gain, where my peace is more guaranteed, where my family has a future in this country that I call home. So, you know, it's literally very much the energy of how am I going to use my power for my highest good, for my longest term good. And also then standing up to where there's the energy of taking what you want because you want it. You know, that instant gratification that's almost fueled by potentially mentally disturbed leadership, you know, and how what that consequence is for the country. And as an individual and as in a collective, what do I stand to gain or lose in the short or long term? You know, it kind of requires a lot of thought and courage, even just in your thoughts, and courage then to act according to the conviction that you have.
I do agree. It requires a lot of thought and to stand on what you just said. Like, as human, we have a tendency to choose to act when the fear, the danger, the possibility of danger is closer to us. And that's why we have so much crisis in the world, like especially the climate change crisis, is that most people don't understand in their mind and react to the threat of something that is going to happen even like a few months away. Like the threat has to be immediate for a lot of people to react. And for the longest time, I felt that it was a biological response to most people. But actually, I think in the first Twin Flame Ascension school classes, Shaleia said that she has noticed that on this earth, a lot of people will wait for dire, life-threatening situations, or even the accident or the threat of death immediate to happen, to want to change things and turn around completely. And it requires a lot of thought, and I think, again, courage to see that being hidden and safe right now is not a solution, because you are going to suffer for more years. And I want to address the fact that it has gone on for a long time, because Putin has been here since 2000 or 1998. I don't even know, like, basically, his term has
1998, like it's apparently been in power for like 24 years or something to that effect.
Oh my God, his term as president is like...
I didn't catch that. For how long? How long is what exactly?
So he's been in power for between 22 and 24 years. So like 1998 to 2000, he came into power. So it is long. And I think one of the things I think that you're touching on, Yoreen, is that energy of once they taste that power, they don't want to let it go.
Yeah, that thing, and it's almost as old as me, almost like it's something that I can compute with, like, presidents staying in power for a long time, because we live in Western countries. We don't experience that. But like, and there have been such traumatic events during the last 22 years. So I want to ask, like, even to the consciousness of Russia, how many more years are you going to wait, to suffer through periodic traumatic events before there is a change. And will you be able to stomach 12 more years of this? 14 actually, because the elections are in 2024, and I guess like, the mandate is until like 2036, and there's a chance that this man is gonna die in power. So, die in power, that's funny. So yeah, are we gonna let the tyrant die in power, and provoke the death of many people in its wake, or are we gonna change now? That would be actually like, how do we respond to abuse? Like, that's basically the question.
I read that he's going to stay in power as long as he can, and he's just making up the rules as he goes along. There's nobody to challenge him, and I guess people around him are afraid, don't want to challenge him, but he's making up the rules as he can go along.
You are right, but also in 2024, and even before, people have a chance. They don't need to wait for the change. They have a chance to let him go. And it's lean, and it requires like thought and process, as we said, but it's very much a possibility. So if you start by saying like, he only makes the rules, and that's never gonna change, and he's gonna die in power, like you're already like choosing to lose something of yours, whether it be your country or your family, your energy, your power. But if you see that actually Russian elections are a bit more complicated than that, even though it doesn't have a challenger because like he's trying to eliminate all of his opponents, we have an administrative and political chance to win this. I think that's something that's gonna start to turn the tide, hopefully. But like, it's now, like it's basically now, we're in 2022. The Russian people need to stand up to their power now. Basically, it's the time to choose.
I think you touched on something very important in terms of the requirement for immediate action. And also, you know, the sentiment that he will die in power does almost make it the energy of giving up. It makes the energy of legitimizing his abuse of power. And so I agree with you in terms of the fact that the consciousness of people that support him versus people that don't support him in his country, they do need to ask themselves very important questions. And one of those important questions is, how much longer? And I think we've all gotten to that point in our lives in certain instances of like, how much longer am I going to put up with this? How much longer am I going to tolerate this abuse? How much longer am I going to wake up feeling this way every day? You know, and then there comes the day where you go like, actually, it's enough. Like it's not even that you've actually made the choice. You've just one day woken up and realized, no more. And so you choose to heal, you choose to leave certain situations, you choose to reshape your friendships. All of those kind of things happen. And I think it's just all in the dynamic of really truly understanding that enough is a decision. and it's a very powerful exercise of your own power. And how you act after that determines whether you are powerfully supporting the choice that you've just made. So yeah, with that, I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for today's conversation. We have reached our hour. I do believe that this is probably a conversation that could expand more. So we'll see if it comes up again as a topic in the future. But for today, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'd like to also invite you to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous discussions that have taken place in the Unionism Spiritual Discussion Group on Facebook. And we look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.